glossy gel medium adds a lot of texture, but you can also use it to resist. And what I mean by that is if you apply it and then once dry, add other colors, it's going to resist those other colors. In most cases, it's going to, the color will, for example, in this example, the purple and the red here, will go everywhere that the glossy medium was not. You can do this with a stencil, you can apply it over areas, and you could even get a similar effect with clear embossing powder and a stamp. So in this lesson, I'm going to talk to you about how I created this card and show you some different ideas as well. Let's look at a few different examples first. Over here you can see a canvas where quite simply glossy gel medium and color medium were applied and then stencil removed, and that's what you get. You can keep it that simple. You really can just get some really interesting colors and let it be. On this one, it's actually a lot different because there's glossy medium and a lot of messy, funky fun all over the place, but same basic idea where it just simply stencil, glossy gel, color, and done. And I really like that it can be that simple, or it could be used as a background element. It could be used in a lot of different ways. On this big wood piece, I've got resist in both over here where there's some stenciling. I've also got some words written out and then painted over and dabbed off. Now the one thing I will mention here is paper versus wood versus a coated surface and uncoated surface. You're going to get slightly different results. So it's always a good idea to do a test or practice a little bit on an area where you can remove it if needed and see what your results are going to be like. Of course, sometimes the unpredictable nature of these things can be half the fun. So let's go ahead and get started with this. So the first thing I am going to show you here, I've got a tag that I stamped and then simply put glossy down. Now, I am going to take an oil pastel. It could be any type of color at all. And I'm using an oil pastel because I like the kind of crayon effect and that I can really see this. Now, immediately what it's going to do is it's going to stick wherever the glossy is because that's the raised portion. That's what it's going to want to automatically be drawn to. If, however, I add water to this, the opposite is going to happen. All of the color is going to fall off of the glossy and it's going to want to stick absolutely everywhere else on this tag. That's the beauty of the resist technique, using that glossy to your advantage to create depth, to create layer. It could be a background like this, or it can be a focal point image like what we're going to create on our card. So to begin with, I have some paper. Now you can do this two different ways. In this example, I put a layer of gesso down first and let it fully dry. I did that so that I could use distressed crayons easily on my background. If you have a color medium that does not require that or that would work well without it, you don't need to, and that's what I'm going to show you here on this example. So we're going to take our stencil and place it wherever you would like it to be. Now, I would caution you that if any of your paper is exposed beyond the edge of the stencil, you'll want to put some washi tape down so you don't accidentally spread the color beyond where you want it. Once your stencil is down, it'll be up to you if you feel that you need some tape or not. I don't think that we need it at all. And I have some glossy gel medium. I'm going to get a pretty good amount here, press the stencil down, and I'm going to begin from the middle and just pull out from there, going nice and slow, making sure all of the areas get covered, that all of those little nooks and crannies are filled with the glossy medium. Once you're done, you can use a thinner coat or you can go heavier, that's up to you. This is my favorite part, and this is why this is one of my favorite techniques. In an earlier lesson, we played with ink and then glossy over, and that is one fun look. But for a more wild and blended type look, this is a lot of fun. Once you have this all down, what we're going to do is take any spray color whatsoever, it's up to you, and we are going to spray. Now the same rules apply where we're not going to want to use too many colors because we really don't want to make a real muddy type mess where the colors interact so much that it becomes kind of, well, for lack of a better term, yucky. Now, once these colors are on, you may notice there is some heavy pooling of color. You have two options. You can use a heat tool and gently heat this a little bit. Just a little bit. You are not trying to fully dry it. You're just trying to dry off that color. You can also take a paper towel, something nice and absorbent, and soak off if there's an excess of color. You're going to want to be very gentle because you do not want to take off too much color. You're just trying to get rid of those pools of color that are just too much for it. Okay, now once you've got that where you like it, if you do want to heat just a little bit more, it helps the color set, but it's also very important that we not have any big pools of color when we go to remove this stencil. If there are any big pools of color when the stencil comes off, it's going to go everywhere. If we have any large areas of color, it's just going to splash all over the place. Once you're sure it's good, and I'm not. I still feel like this is a little bit too much. I feel like the colors, it's just a little too much. Now, if you do like that, where you remove too much color, you can spray more, or you can let it be. Once you are satisfied though, you will want to remove the stencil, and look at that. There she is, so lovely. And all of those colors are going to soak into that gel medium as it dries. All of those colors are going to be there. And it's always so much fun to me to see what the result is because you don't fully control it. There is a little bit of random to it, and it just makes it a lot of fun. Here I have several examples all dried. Now, once it's all dried, it's going to be, you can touch it, you can spray it with water. It shouldn't react at all because the colors have soaked into that gel medium. The colors should really stick in there nicely. Now, one last tip before we move on. You see this piece of paper that's all wild and funky and full of color? Well, before I put my stencil away, while my stencil is still all covered in color medium, a lot of times I will take either a scrap of paper or a fresh paper and press it in, and you can see I'm using the palette knife to really press it and lift. And you're gonna get a slightly different image every time. It's always gonna be a little bit messy, a little bit funky, but this is a lot of fun to create really colorful backgrounds for future use. This is a lot of fun to just kind of play around with. And if you're feeling really brave, you can see that's exactly what I did here. This was from a different project and I was feeling brave. I put it on there and pressed, and that's the image that I ended up with. So this is something you can have a lot of, I call it secondary fun because it wasn't the initial project, but it's something you can do still. Back to our card, just going to make sure that there is no wet medium here because we don't want anything to get on there. Now, for coloring this, it's really going to be up to you. It's going to depend on if you want a lot of color, if you want a little color, how much do you want, and where do you want it to be? Do you want the face to have color or not? Me, I am going to use a little bit of lime green spray here, as well as just a little bit of acrylic paint, just a tiny bit, because I love this Prima paint, this Sparks paint with so metallic. I don't want it to be opaque, I just want it to add that little bit of golden shimmer. As you can see what that does to my mist, and then I can just put it wherever I would like. Now, when I work, initially it may cover over a little bit. You can see how the Spark paint adds a little bit of metallic onto there. It's up to me and my personal preference. There's no right or wrong here. If I want to keep that way, if I want to let that stay, or if I want to wipe it away, I would want to grab my paper towel and just quickly wipe that off, and it will come off, as you can see. And now we can play any color medium we would like. If we'd like some paints, if we'd like to use inks, any of the colors, any of the techniques that we've used so far in class would apply here to the background. And what's really fun is that your main image, in this case a main image, although it could be a background image, as I said before, but it will remain unaffected. You will not have anything stick to it. The blue and the purple, in this case, it will all stay right there. So lovely. And if you just use too much color and it starts to color, you can just dab it and look, the blue is restored. The purple will be restored. It's so much fun to do. And here you can see I just added a little simple sentiment and a button, a couple little sequins, and I've got a card. As I said before, it could be a canvas. We could do absolutely any project. In this case, it's a focal point image, but you could also, as you can see here on one of my travel notebooks, it's more of a background pattern. So it's not just focal point images, although that is the most fun in my opinion. You can also create really neat background images. And as a final tip, if you don't like that it's glossy, when you're done, you can apply a thin coat of watered down matte finish medium or matte finish gel, watered down just a little bit, and that will remove the shine, or at least most of the shine. If you need a second coat, you can do that as well. The other added benefit to doing that is that it will in fact seal your colors. So for example, these colors here that are just out in the open, if I were to do that, it would seal them. They would no longer be reactive. They would be locked in. And sometimes I know that's exactly what you want. I hope you have had as much fun with this lesson as I have. I've still got several more ideas to share with you.